Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Driving Manufacturing Success with SAP and AI, Strategies to Overcome Industry Challenges. We're excited you could join us. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be moderating today's event. Today, we're going to talk about the complex and rapidly evolving supply landscape that manufacturers must contend with today. This is an environment characterized by global supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, rising costs, technological integration challenges, and increasing sustainability demands. In the face of all these challenges, manufacturers can easily get overwhelmed without the right tools and technologies in place to create better resilience and responsiveness. We are going to provide you with insights into those tools today, as well as some actionable strategies for driving long-term growth and innovation. But first, a few housekeeping items. Please note the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the top right corner of your presentation window. If you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know we do capture all questions. We are thrilled to be joined by our speakers, Will Yeldell, Vice President, Pre-Sales with Argano, Chris Kraft, Senior Client Executive, Digital Supply Chain with Argano, and Praveen Ramamurthy, Senior Director, Supply Chain Management, Global Domain Advisory with SAP. So to begin, I'd like to ask each of our speakers to provide a quick introduction of themselves and their work. Will, would you like to kick us off?
Sure, thank you. Greetings, everyone. Will Yeldell. I've been an SAP professional since 1996. I was certified in the manufacturing side of SAP and always worked on small to mid-sized projects. So I had to learn the logistics side of the house to enable to do the manufacturing piece correctly for my small to mid-sized customers. Was an implementation consultant for 11 years. I joined SAP internally in 2007 to basically shepherd the partners through rapid implementation strategies around SAP. And then with the advent of S/4HANA, I was rolling out enablement content to the partners. Last year, I rejoined the partner space, so now I'm back in the partner area. I'm with Argano and working with Argano as they position and take SAP out to their mid-market customers.
Thanks, Will. Chris?
Yeah, hey, everyone. Pleasure to be here with y'all. I've been doing supply chain stuff since the beginning of 2001 when we were pretty new in these overall solutions and how companies were using them, and I've been implementing these solutions and processes for supply chain across manufacturing for many different industries for the past 25 years.
Excellent. Thank you. And Praveen?
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here. Praveen Ramamurthy, Senior Director with Supply Chain Management at SAP. I've been in the manufacturing, engineering, and logistics space for 25 years, focused on, electronics, high-tech, semiconductor, industrial manufacturing customers. SAP has this overall comprehensive view of how we bring all of those different elements into connected together for a business enterprise overview, and that's primarily my role at SAP.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Glad to have you all here with us today. So with that then, let's get started. Manufacturing is at a critical juncture with disruptions, rising costs, and sustainability pressures all taking their toll. So what makes this moment in time especially urgent for manufacturers? I'd love to hear from all of you, but Praveen, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Megan. That's actually a really great question to start this. The first point I want to bring out here is the focus on the customer, the end customer. The customer increasingly looking for customized products, either one-off or they want to be ability to change the products on the fly when it is being manufactured. That provides a lot of tremendous complexity for manufacturers, be it in supply chain, logistics, or even trying to understand if they have the capacity to accommodate those customizations, those changes. We've also seen a lot of disruptions recently within supply chains, be it the tariff or be it other geopolitical challenges that have impacted the ability to effectively plan for disruptions for our customers. There is another element of shortage of skilled labor that is, both in finding enough skilled labor, but also, filling those open positions that are available, that are needed to make these products, along with the raising costs of raw materials, components, labor, especially, and in even transportation. All of these coming together at the same time, along with newer technologies that are being offered, creates a unique point for manufacturing customers in this time.
Will, any thoughts there?
Sure. The name of the game with SAP manufacturing has always been efficiency, meaning how can we help our customers become more efficient and more effective in their manufacturing processes? It becomes even more critical now when costs are rising, labor costs are up, energy costs are up. It seems like all costs are going up. So if you're a customer who can get a firm handle on your manufacturing processes and be able to report efficiencies and inefficiencies, then you can improve your manufacturing processes. SAP is obviously the transactional system of record where you can consume raw materials, track those raw materials. You can consume labor, machine, and human labor. You can track all these manufacturing attributes, but the question is, can you make decisions on those attributes? And S4 gives the users the ability to see trends in their manufacturing processes, see where they're becoming more efficient, where they have not been that way in the past, see where rising costs have perhaps given them an opportunity to change the way they supply their components, the way they plan their operations. Any system can track activity. The real question is, can you make decisions based upon that activity? And that's where S4 really becomes a decision-making tool as opposed to a transactional system of record.
Chris, we'll have you close it out.
Yeah, I think the guys did a great job talking about disruptions as it relates to internal disruptions for organizations, and then talking about disruptions that are kind of started from suppliers. But the reality of a lot of disruptions that we're experiencing is just due to the fact that there's a huge change in customer expectation on how product is actually delivered and the quality of that product as well. I kind of related back to the Amazon effect. It's one of those things where we're going to buy things today and we're going to expect it to be delivered now. Amazon has a Amazon Now type situation. So the expectation that product can be delivered to you in the next hour or two really changes a lot of what we're trying to do with supply chains today and how we manage supply chains. So I think the speed and the visibility and the eco consciousness associated with getting product to you so quickly has really changed how people respond to that. And I think the guys did a great job talking about cost consciousness and all these other type of things that we are generally seeing in supply chains today are becoming a product of the expectations from our customers.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So let's put some of these issues then into context. How are outdated legacy technologies keeping manufacturers from addressing issues in their supply chain or in the broader operation? Chris, we'll have you lead this.
Yeah, I think the reality is we still see a lot of manufacturers before they become $1 billion, even a couple $1 billion in revenue, still focusing on manual processes. The reality is if you don't digitize a lot of these processes, you can't take advantage of the more advanced ways of managing costs within these organizations. We just had a lengthy conversation with some of our clients at a conference we were just at, and the whole part of this, everybody wants to utilize AI. Everybody wants to utilize some of the advanced techniques within supply chain planning. But the reality is if you don't have the data to power it, if you don't have an integrated system, it's going to be very difficult for you to take advantage of the tools that are in the marketplace currently today. So I think that's really what it comes down to. We've got to get these processes in a way that we can measure them, understand how we can become more efficient, and that leads into the usage of some of these other tools.
Traditional legacy ERP products didn't have all the flexibility and the customization available to users to model and craft their manufacturing processes in their ERP systems. For example, SAP in manufacturing gives you multiple options to capture scrap, either component scrap, operational scrap, work center scrap, any type of an opportunity within your manufacturing process where parts can go bad or components can break or what you produce may fail an initial quality check. You need to plan around those exceptions. And you can do that by putting in the concept of scrap factors all up and down your manufacturing processes. Legacy systems have a hard time tracking exact activities that go into manufacturing processes. SAP can track not only machine time and labor time, we can track setup time, teardown time, queue time, overhead, any number of what we call standard values, which are attributes of manufacturing that you want to capture and report upon. We can do that in SAP. Legacy systems don't have that flexibility. And if you think about it, I say to many people, SAP is the majority player in the Fortune 500. Well, in the Fortune 50,000, meaning all those companies below the Fortune 500, you have lots of operations, lots of companies and customers who are not the big operations. One manufacturing plant, maybe one or two distribution centers. They run SAP. They use the same tools, the same modeling, the same techniques that the big customers use. So SAP, all up and down the size of customers, is able to support manufacturing customers in their various modeling of their manufacturing processes, from very simple to extremely complex.
Yeah, I'd like to add on, kind of one of the things that that all of these companies, look at that pyramid that Will just talked about, the top 100 and then the bottom supply chain side. All of them, what they need is real-time visibility into taking actions. It's not supposed to be that I have data that I have to churn through and then take a decision later on over a week. That delays the entire process. That doesn't lead to efficiency. That leads to inefficiencies and having manual processes where you're not being as competitive. And that's where I think SAP helps. Moving to this level of orchestration of supply chain and manufacturing, rather than having to be reactive to challenges and changes that are coming through. And that goes back to the point Chris was making, is once you have this orchestration, you can then bring on technologies like AI or agentic systems that can then help you more efficiently execute on those processes, maybe from a better planning perspective, on a human capital resource allocation, or even raw material allocation. That's where you start seeing more of that benefits and to the bottom line and to the KPIs that you're measuring.
Excellent. Thank you. So I think we've painted a good picture then of what manufacturers are looking at without a modernized tech stack. How can manufacturers use tech modernization as a tool to address some of these issues and create a more resilient operation? Praveen?
Yeah, the challenge is looking at it from an enterprise point of view. Manufacturing is an element of it, and you can't be looking at this from just that point of view. Once you have an enterprise scale vision of where you want to move this, that's when you can bring in more of the operational transactional insights and bring in additional solutions and technologies that are emerging into that ecosystem space. At SAP, we talk about applications that are best-in-class applications that are providing our customers the ability to, build in their business processes and standardize it across, different plants that they might be running in different geographies. Then there is insights that they can drive from an application or an enterprise point of view that helps, as Will was talking about, where is the cost, where is the overhead going, how much are we consuming in this particular plant? How do we make one of the plants that might be best at something or struggling with something? What are the insights that we can take to better that plant? And then bring on things like systems of AI agents that will then help orchestrate this at that enterprise level, from all the way from receiving a custom order to getting that order shipped to the customer, this concept of what we call a perfect order, where the order is executed, shipped to the customer gets the product that they requested in the time that they requested with zero defects. That's the KPI that we try to hit with SAP solutions and how we organize it from an application, data, and an AI layer.
Chris, what would you add to that?
Yeah, as I was thinking about what Praveen was saying, I'll go back to like what I was talking about earlier with the Amazon effect. I think the reality is where we're seeing technology be introduced here is when there is a supplier disruption, how does that affect the end customer? We've got tools now that do a really good job that if it's a raw material shortage that's going to affect the production of a finished good, we can understand what disruption is causing which finished goods to be affected, and then ultimately the orders that are going to be affected based off that. If we have a prioritization scheme based on customers, these type of things, we can ensure that the most profitable customers are getting the product that they need, for instance, and then we can trace that back to the disruption. The other thing is once we know that there is a disruption, it's much easier to plan around that disruption. What natively has happened in the past is we didn't know there was a problem. We didn't know that a supplier was going to be late until it was too late, meaning that it may be a couple of days before afterwards that we just run out of material or something like that, and then we have to go figure out exactly what happened. Nowadays, with transportation visibility providers, they're doing a pretty good job of helping us understand where our shipment's at. We can plan around that, and that has really helped us become more resilient in our overall supply chains and our responses to our customers.
Yeah, and to further follow up on that, emerging technologies have become more and more powerful as time goes by. More and more shop floor operations are being managed and actually driven by technology as opposed to actually shop floor operators. In many situations, the shop floor operators have now begun to manage the technology on the floor as opposed to just utilizing the technology on the floor. The advent of weight scales can communicate directly back to SAP. Quality tests can be conducted by machinery and communicate those results directly back to SAP. Now, you'll always have to have a user to ensure that the conversations are happening accurately, but those conversations are being conducted more and more by technology as opposed to the actual operator. So as these technologies grow and become more powerful and more resilient and quite frankly, more dependable, SAP can take advantage of these technologies with interface points, with synchronization areas where, simple things like barcode and RFID, you can utilize that to really automate your shop floor. You'll always have to have the operator to make sure everything's going as planned, but the responsibilities are slowly and more effectively being transferred down to the shop floor technology to give the operator more time to do the real troubleshooting, the real human aspect of manufacturing, as opposed to the laborious, cut, paste, stamp, assemble, move on.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. Can you provide any examples of companies that have implemented these technologies and used them effectively to grow or improve operations? Chris, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think from the example that I gave, we're working with Morgan Foods right now, and they've done a really great job of tying in Ariba's collaborative supply chain directly into integrated business planning within IBP to try to understand where those disruptions are happening. So they're bringing in ASNs directly from their portal, which is the Ariba portal, from their suppliers. And then if there is a disruption based off the in-transit inventory, they recognize that, and they recognize the implications associated with that disruption directly in the supply chain. The other thing that Morgan Foods is doing is they've implemented IBP, and as a part of IBP, you can run simulation around these things. So Morgan Foods is doing some really fun things like what's an optimistic plan? What's a pessimistic plan? What is our baseline plan? And then making assumptions around that. So in the past, we've done these exercises on spreadsheets, and it's always been the joke where it's some C-suite person asks the question that triggers 1,000 spreadsheets. The nice thing about this is we're not waiting for a week or two to come back with a response from the one question that somebody asked. we're able to do this in an integrated way and come up with multiple different scenarios, base different assumptions on those scenarios, and be able to report that back in a way and give people options on how we can try to solve these problems most effectively to ensure earnings per share and revenue growth for our organizations.
One of my favorite examples of technology working its way into the actual operational side of business goes back many years, and it goes back to a major farm equipment manufacturer. They're not my customer, so I'm not going to say their name, but if you threw out three guesses, you'd probably get it with one of the three guesses. But their combines and massive farm tractors and harvesters have thousands of critical components, and those components wear out. It used to be the actual operator would have to go and evaluate whether those parts were at their end of life or if maintenance was required. It took an engineer or a mechanic to make those decisions. Now we have the actual machinery communicating to SAP saying, I need a new control rod here. My transmission is getting to be where it needs to be serviced. The equipment can request the maintenance. That's a major change to putting the responsibility on a maintenance engineer who has to go in and tear the equipment apart and determine whether they need to do some overhaul work or not. So it's an old example. It's been around for a while, but it really proves the point that equipment can now start to make the request to be repaired. That did not exist before. Another thing I always like to say, with the advent of emerging technologies and with the way that SAP can be crafted and tailored to your unique needs, you're not going to outgrow SAP. I tell my customers, you may start off as an Acme chemical company, but if you want to grow to be the size of a DuPont or a BASF, there's nothing within SAP that's going to stop you from doing that. You can grow and scale and make your system as large and complex as you want it if you really want to grow, or if you want to stay in the industry and the size that you're happy to be in. This will let you run your operation for as long as you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll kind of add to that point. You talked about the visibility. At SAP we call that shop floor to top floor, and there are a number of customers across various industries that have done that. Providing visibility all the way from what happens in the shop floor to the top floor, where decisions can be taken or decisions can be automated in real time. And that's the point I keep coming back to is, decisions have to be taken in real time because they're always changing. There are new things and new data that is being generated that is coming on. And this is where I think SAP Digital Manufacturing kind of stands out because it's connected within that stack. So you have right visibility at the right time, that you can take actions at the right time. Be it a challenge in equipment uptime or operators, or a challenge within supply chain. All of that can be accommodated to kind of ensure that you are maximizing the time that is spent on the shop floor with this. Allocate resources more efficiently, plan for some of these shortages, plan for the manufacturing and operation side of it, so that when challenges do come, you're prepared, you anticipated those, and you're ready to take those challenges head on.
Excellent. Yeah, I think those are all great examples of some of the benefits modernization can provide. I'd like to talk about labor now, because labor shortages are a big issue for manufacturers right now, especially for companies looking to reshore operations to the U.S., where the skilled labor pool is limited. So how can the AI capabilities in SAP help to retain workers and boost productivity? Will?
Well, real quick, I'm gonna defer the AI topic to others, but from the standard labor tracking, yeah, labor is becoming scarce. And within S4, you can assign multiple human resources to a given operation. You can also get into the pay and the compensation of those through SAP SuccessFactors, so you can really manage and oversee your labor pool. With the fact that technology on the shop floor, as I mentioned earlier, is becoming more and more powerful, you don't need as many hands truly on the keyboard to update the system. A lot of these transactions, a lot of the data points being captured by SAP can be done programmatically. That takes the responsibility off the human being, but that gives the human being the ability to now go out and focus on process improvement, to focus on where can I make this machine more effective and more efficient? Where can I try and solve these bottlenecks, as opposed to having someone who is basically tied to a keyboard just entering in all the transactional data? If the fewer labor resources that we have, if we can be more effective and be more efficient in how we utilize and assign activities to those labor resources, it helps solve the problem.
Yeah, I always think about this too. I mean, we talk a lot about AI potentially taking jobs away, but we haven't seen a situation with any industrial revolution in which less jobs were created. So there's some things that I kick back on that one. The one thing that we are doing with AI and robotic process automation is we're starting to have people focus on work that is more value add. So for instance, us just creating reports directly out of spreadsheets, us doing VLOOKUPs, these type of things I wouldn't consider to be very value add, being the fact that most of the Excel spreadsheets we work with are offline. And by the time we complete this report, it's already at down level data. What we're finding now is that AI and robotic process automation, all of these things can help people focus on work that's really value add, improving customer experience, improving cost within an organization, or even allowing us to grow an organization. So for instance, every time we go to organizations, we ask people, how many of you have had a great idea that you've just never been given the opportunity to try to implement? And the truth is, for most organizations, 80% of our time is spent on keeping the lights on within an organization. And only about 20% of the time is actually spent growing the organization. For most C-suite folks that we speak to, they would love to see that completely flipped, where people spend about 80% of the time actually growing the business, interjecting new ideas, working collaboratively with suppliers and customers and people internal to the organization cross different silos to work on growing the organization. So AI and all these tools that we're starting to develop now are allowing people to focus more on the collaborative aspects of their jobs and focusing more on the value-added activity.
Yeah, Chris, that's a good point. And at SAP, we call that future-ready workforce. That's taking the challenge of the scarcity of the labor market and ensuring that the capital, the human capital that we have, how do we get them ready for the future? Be it future in terms of technology, be it future in terms of newer products and newer things that we want to make. One of the things that success factors that, as Will mentioned, is the ability to provide the workforce with the training, with the ability to upskill that talent, upskill their knowledge in different areas, including AI or including newer manufacturing processes. And when you put that together, we've seen that 78%, there was a benefit of 78% in completion and of trainings, and a better equipped workforce to build a better trained workforce. In that sense, there was a 77% improvement where the workforce was able to select and choose the training that they wanted to do. So it felt they were it empowers the workforce to say, hey, this is the way I want to take, and then be more productive in that sense. So success factors is a critical component when you tie that into manufacturing, and how you want to look at this from a resource availability from an enterprise point of view. Yeah.
Excellent points. Thank you all so much. Now, we've talked a little about the scalability of these solutions, but I'd really like to dig into that a bit more here, because some manufacturers may hesitate to modernize because traditional options have been customized legacy solutions that can't accommodate growth, or big enterprise-level solutions that feel out of reach. How does SAP move beyond these options to help manufacturers get ready for the future growth of the business? Will?
Sure, and I appreciate that question. It's a great question, and it's a question that I've been answering and addressing my entire career at SAP. Like I said in the introduction, I always was on the small to mid-sized project. I never did the massive global Fortune 50 organization. I did the stereotypical mid-sized manufacturer who started off with procurement, sales, manufacturing, inventory. They buy raw material, they produce their finished product, they sell it, and they do all the accounting to capture all the numbers, and then they do it again the next month. If they want to add quality management is there. If they want to add warehouse management is there. If they want to do more complex transportation management, it's all there. When you license SAP, you get access to the entire portfolio of solutions within, talking of S4, within the S4 umbrella. You don't have to utilize them, you don't have to use them, but they're there. You will not outgrow SAP. If you want to expand, you can always expand. If you want to add more plants, more distribution centers, I mean, even more accounts in your charts of account, you can continually grow SAP. Whereas the traditional legacy systems, you would outgrow them fairly quickly. If you hit a really organic growth spurt, you may not be able to capture all your business operations within your legacy system. Beating a dead horse, you will not outgrow SAP. It can handle your growth, it can handle how you expand, and if you get into new functionality that you didn't scope originally, if we can't do it within SAP, within the core S4 product, I bet you a dollar we have some products in the SAP line of business portfolio of solutions that'll satisfy your requirements.
Yeah, I mean, Bill, I mean that's the point towards future proofing your technology investments or your capex investments into solutions. And SAP, we call that business suite. The priority is always changing. Be it new technologies like AI or predictive analytics or sustainability metrics. All of those things are built into the business suite. So we can look at this from a more holistic, what we call connected business processes. Within supply chain, we call that design to operate. In finance, we have cash to order to cash kind of processes. These are enterprise processes that are inbuilt into that supply chain. So, as your business grows, as you expand, as new standardizations come through, you can consume all of those as your business grows, and into new products, new markets, new technologies, whatever that might be. Instead of treating these as silos improvements or siloed areas, an interoperability layer across your business functions. That's what SAP brings to the table.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think the other point that I'd like to make is that for a lot of these organizations, we've seen, like this happened to me at IBM as well, was that when we've created a ton of customization in the past, it has put us in a position where IT becomes the limiting factor for growth for these organizations. For organizations that are starting to experience issues with revenue growth, or if they're having a tough time innovating into a new business model, it's in a lot of cases, it's been this customization that we have done that we've had resources move on, that nobody knows what that customization is even used for anymore. We've seen application landscapes for some legacy organizations that may have 200 or 300 different applications. And when you look at one specific application, a lot of people don't know what it actually does or why it even exists. So I think for a lot of organizations that feel that their IT stack is the limiting factor for growth, SAP's done a great job of building the technology within SAP to accommodate best practices. And I think one of the ways that organizations can help prepare themselves for future growth of the business is by looking at their processes, trying to figure out what is a strategic advantage for their organization and what actually just helps keep the lights on. If it's things that actually just help keep the lights on, then use the best practices within SAP. If it's something that actually is a competitive advantage for your organization, using the business transformation platform that SAP offers to enable some of that customization is a good way to allow you to align on standard processes within SAP, but also allow you to innovate and grow the organization as well.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. So cost is another big issue for manufacturers. How can the AI embedded in the SAP suite help widen shrinking margins and protect profitability? Chris?
Yeah, I think AI is doing a great job of helping organizations streamline processes and waste within their organizations. So we were at a major wine company not too long ago, and they had recognized that they had almost $60 million in obsolete inventory. For them, it was a lot of money. ended up being a large percentage of the inventory that they actually held. So what we're finding with AI is we're starting to figure out better ways of driving an overall demand forecast, for instance. So small changes within the marketplace from a retail perspective can translate into obsolescence and loss for some of these organizations if they're building up a ton of inventory on the wrong products. AI has done a really good job from a forecasting perspective. It was one of the first use cases in supply chain to allow us to drive a greater forecast accuracy, which helps us reduce our inventory carrying costs, and it helps us with the write-offs associated with inventory obsolescence and loss.
Yeah, I'll kind of add on into that. This is the question that comes to is now, it's like, how do we reduce it, or what needs to be done in this case? Margin pressures from everything from raw material, labor, energy costs. Those are all straining margins for manufacturing customers, and this is the question that needs to be. It's like, what needs to be done in this case? There is the element of supply chain where we need to kind of take into account the speed, the profit margin, the customer service, also an element of risk that is added in there. And that's where SAP, we look at this from an enterprise connected process, so we can ensure that decisions are taken are being taken in a contextualized manner. We are connecting not only internal teams, but then bringing on our external collaborating partners, be it supply chain partners, be it logistic partners, be it partners from a business to business collaboration or asset collaboration. We're bringing that element together so that we can predict some of that raising risk of margin pressure from within our extended ecosystem of players. And that's where AI adds on. So you're extending that technology not from within your enterprise, but also to your collaborating partners.
If you think about it, efficiency is always the goal of all customers. In SAP, our tagline for a long time was run better, run faster, run smarter. We want you as a customer to not stay in your old models, your old methods, your old processes. We want to give you the ability to rethink and retool and hopefully improve how you do your day-to-day operations. A lot of that improvement comes from information reported at the shop floor. I used to tell people, 80% of the real users of SAP won't see the direct benefit. It's those 80% feed the model, and the 20% get the information that the 80% provide, and they can start making determinations based on that information that their 80% colleagues sent them to evaluate. They can look at the manufacturing models. They can look at the trends on the shop floor. But if the technology on the shop floor is difficult to use, it's clunky, too many clicks, too many screens, too much interaction, shop floor operators, quite frankly, won't be as diligent in reporting the actuals that the decision makers have to have. AI doesn't care. AI will send you all the most accurate information as soon as it can, as quickly as it can, as accurately as it can. And if that can take the responsibility off of the shop floor operators to provide that mission critical information, then AI can really improve the shop floor processes by giving the operators, like we said before, more time to do the real human side of the work. AI can take over the real feed the beast, if you will, side of reporting that the decision makers have to have.
Excellent. Thank you. I do want to make sure that we leave enough time for questions from our audience, but there is one last thing I wanted to ask about. Manufacturers are facing stricter emissions regulations and stakeholder pressure for greener operations. So Praveen, we'll come to you first on this one. How can SAP solutions help organize move from baseline compliance to being an actual leader in sustainability?
Excellent. Thank you. That was another point I wanted to add in here is that consumers are now looking for more products that are sustainable products, or built on sustainable technologies, or built on sustainable materials, and that's where SAP solutions coming into become such a shining light, is because sustainability is built into our platform. It's not an afterthought. It's from every enterprise business process that we talk about. Sustainability is kind of inbuilt into that process, be it from a lead to cash, where we are marketing and selling sustainable products, or sustainability from source to pay, where we are procuring ethically and within our value supply chain, or sustainability in a plan to fulfill model, where we are planning at a board level and acting on at an operational level with sustainability in view. And of course, with the inbuilt sustainability, we can always go back and look at, what is the sustainability KPI that we're meeting, what is the report against sustainabilities. We can output the ESG reporting at any point in time, and kind of fulfill these different set of regulations that exist in Americas versus Europe versus other regions. We can kind of bring all of that as part of the business process rather than adding it as an afterthought. And that's what SAP sustainability is. In a nutshell, sustainability is one of the core components that we have inbuilt into the SAP platform.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Praveen. I think we're even seeing situations now where I work in the steel industry quite a bit, and we're seeing people move from blast furnace to arc furnace. And one of the things that they're starting to do with arc furnace is starting to power some of these things based off of solar, and then energy storage as part of a way of reducing the cost. I think we're starting to see now that organizations are finding that a focus on sustainability actually does help with some of the cost pressures that they have, and it does reduce cost for organizations over a period of time. One of the ways that we're already starting to do this, and Praveen kind of mentioned this just a minute ago with some of the sustainability functions that are actually in SAP, is really help you track the CO2 per unit produced, per transport load, or CO2 per unit of revenue even. So the reality is, once you start to get this information in your system and start to report based off of that, it helps you understand where there's places that we can start to save money, reduce energy costs, reduce CO2 emissions, these type of things, and even reduce waste within our overall manufacturing operation. So these are things that we're starting to focus on within SAP, and SAP is doing a great job of enabling organizations to be able to track some of these things to drive metrics that lead to an improvement in sustainability.
Thank you, because we call that integrated cradle to grave sustainability management, by the way. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I'm going to cut it down to an even more simplistic example. If you require fewer raw materials because you've improved your manufacturing processes, then one, you're using less effort, less labor, less activity, so you're consuming less natural resources, and your vendors are not having to make as many components because you're not requiring as many components, so they become more effective, more efficient. Anytime you can improve your manufacturing processes, you by default are improving the sustainability of your organization. If you use less energy because you're producing your products more effectively, more efficiently, it's simple math. You consume less power, you save on operating costs. You basically are satisfying the sustainability requirements. Any efficiencies that you can build into your operations, again, by default, is sustainability. So SAP, in giving customers the ability to improve their processes, improve their activities, become more efficient, become more effective, to utilize what they have in a more accurate and efficient manner, by default, you are increasing your sustainability, and you're contributing to the sustainability push and the green push of the worldwide economy.
Yes, definitely. We have had some questions come in from our audience, so I do want to make sure that we field a few before we go today. And just remember, if we don't get to your question today, we will follow up via email. Our first one here, Will, I'll send it over to you. What KPIs or metrics should leaders focus on to track progress of these modernization investments?
Well, strictly on the manufacturing side, the most important task is really on the accounting side, on the cost controlling side of cost accountants settling these manufacturing orders and seeing how did they do. You were supposed to produce $1,000 of product. How much did it cost you to produce? Did it cost you $1,100 in labor? Did it cost you $900 in labor? Were your KPIs on your scrap, KPIs on labor that was consumed, overhead that was captured? if you can track and trace the effectiveness and the profitability of your manufacturing processes, you can begin to tailor and tweak and pass down to the manufacturing shop floor. Hey, folks, we noticed that you were a little over your expected scrap rate on this given component. Do we need to talk to the vendor? Or, hey, folks in the shop floor, you're doing a great job. The model says it takes you an hour to produce this product. You're doing it in 58 minutes. Now, 2 minutes may not seem like a whole lot, but when you're running 24/7, 52 weeks a year, those 2 minutes of saving can be substantial when added all up. So the real KPIs are in measuring how your manufacturing process is measured up to the expected results that you plan around. If you can improve your plans because your actuals are getting better, you can improve your manufacturing processes.
Well, I'll kind of add in one point there. One of the things that I've heard a lot is also the KPI based on customer centric and transparency based kind of metric, which is this on time delivery. Can be because once you improve your internal processes, then you have your customer as the focus that says, did my customer get the order on time? Did I deliver a perfect order to my customer? What is the visibility do I have to purchase order coming in? Or in case of what is the revenue lost because I had a stock out situation, or because I had to scrap something. Those would be kind of some of the very key kind of KPIs that we could also track, and those are all inbuilt within SAP Business Suite solutions as well.
Yeah, so I think really to answer the question on what KPIs or metrics should folks really focus on, I think the key point here really is that we should focus on metrics that measure the health of the entire supply chain. And metrics that we have found to do that is on time and full, just like what Praveen was talking about. We've also seen build to plan as being critical. There was an organization that I worked for that somehow found out they had 275 days worth of inventory, and some of it was going obsolete. They had warehouses absolutely full, but they had warehouses full of product that they couldn't sell. So the idea was that if we build to the overall plan, we're building products that we actually have demand for. And lastly, I think the inventory turns into being a critical issue for a lot of organizations as well. The quicker the velocity of an organization, the more likely they are to not have issues associated with obsolescence and loss, these type of things. And it also helps with the amount of the rapid change that we see within organizations, specifically with product innovation. So, for instance, I think it's a Pixel 7. I think they're on like a Pixel 25 now, something like that, right? And just in a couple of years, you can see that we've changed products relatively rapidly. So holding a lot of inventory over a period of time becomes very expensive for organizations. We've got to be more nimble.
Excellent. Great points. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Our next question asks if you have any tips for facilitating good change management during the rollout of these technologies. Chris, you want to take this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take this one. I think what we've generally seen in all of the organizations that have implemented technology or management or any of these things, any of these modernization tools that have failed, they have failed for basically one specific reason. They fail because we do not have people dedicated to the project. And what I mean is we have people that are doing their day job, and then we're asking them to do the project on the side. In those types of situations, if the day job gets crazy, they're not going to have enough time to focus on the project, and in which case the investment of time to the project is directly related to its overall success. So for organizations that are taking on these activities, it becomes absolutely critical for you to have people that are dedicated to the project.
Yeah, Chris just nailed it. I mean, the engagement of the customer in the project is the most important aspect of the project. I'll be honest, implementing SAP is just not that difficult. I mean, having done it for almost 30 years now, it's just not that difficult. But when I walk away, the customer has to be completely comfortable, engaged, and have been involved in the implementation from day one. So the business process owners on the customer side, like Chris said, if their day job prevents them, and don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting their day job. They have a job at the customer for a reason. But we, the customer, the project team, we need their professionalism. We need their experience. We need their input into, will this work for the way that you, dear customer, actually utilize your manufacturing processes? If you don't have that real deep early buy-in from the customer, then the project will go live on date, on time, on budget, and within months the customer is going to be confused or struggling or not sure where to go, and it'll end up being, what's wrong with SAP? Well, there's nothing wrong with SAP. What's wrong is that we didn't have the correct buy-in and that real synergy integration between consultant and customer. Without that, it's a moot point.
Yeah, I mean, and I really didn't have anything to add here, but Will, I think, kind of gave us that full endorsement of SAP, and thank for that. One of the things that we talk about that Will here is, keeping the core clean, essentially adopting some of the best practices that we have built for those industries into the solution, so that the technology debt kind of reduces, so you don't have very specific business processes that take too long to implement or too difficult to implement. We also have great partners like Organo that can help with that, bringing that best practice or best practice for that industry for our customers with SAP solutions. And that's kind of the key. We have the best solutions and best partners with best industry knowledge that we can help our customers adopt these technologies faster.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I think we've got time for one more question, and this next one kind of piggybacks nicely off the last one. For someone about to start a modernization effort, what advice can you give?
Yeah, I think I can take this one. I think the reality is, for organizations that are starting a modernization effort, don't try and take what you're doing on spreadsheets today and put that into an integrated system. Before you start a modernization effort, focus on what the to-be process is. What do you want to be when you grow up? What is your expectation of these tools? If you were taking a 30-year-old process and plugging that into a modern tool set, the reality is you're not taking advantage of a lot of the things that these tools do really, really well in a modern world. We've got to get people to a place to where they understand what the future state process is. They understand how these tools enable that, and they understand how their work will change in conjunction with the usage of these tools.
Another age-old adage I throw in there with this topic is, don't bite off more than you can chew. Meaning, I've had many customers who saw warehouse management and they said, I think we need to utilize warehouse management. My first question to them is, okay, I mean, warehouse management is a strong functionality, but it truly is, it's a discipline. It tells the customer, you will put this product in this particular bin and you will pick it from this particular bin. If your operators don't have that discipline already built in, then warehouse management, as powerful and as accurate as a system as it is, it's going to be a recipe for disaster, because if your folks don't have the discipline of following a warehouse management strategy and methodology, then very quickly the information becomes inaccurate, becomes stale. As soon as that happens, again, the topic comes up, what's wrong with SAP? Well, there's nothing wrong with SAP. We put in a warehouse management system because that's what you asked for, but your people were not ready to utilize it in the manner that it has to be utilized. Don't bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, Will, I mean, if I can add from an SAP point of view, we want to see how can customers focus on the enterprise suite or the business suite of solutions, so we have a end-to-end view of how those building blocks would be consumed to build to that enterprise level. You're perfectly, absolutely true. Don't bite off more than you can chew, but also have that vision of an end-to-end strategy of how you can better your entire value chain rather than just on one solution, right? As Chris kind of went to that KPI of having, the customer example they had, 250 days of inventory, that goes directly back to the planning of how do you do demand forecasting accurately. And that's, kind of inventory connected, but planning connected, which is where we talk about the business suite. So my best advice is look at it from an enterprise business point of view, business suite point of view, but then start off small. Know that SAP has the building blocks to get you to that level.
Great points all. Thank you so much. That does it for us today. I'd like to thank our speakers, Will Yeldell and Chris Kraft from Argonaut and Praveen Ramamurthy from SAP for a great discussion today. We've covered a lot of ground, from how legacy systems hinder manufacturers to the role of AI and SAP solutions in building resilience, addressing labor challenges, protecting margins, and even transforming sustainability from a compliance requirement into a competitive advantage. And of course, I'd like to thank our audience for joining us as well. We hope today's session provided you with practical insights that will help you on your own modernization journey. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.